That's where David really drew on his strength, is because of his faith in God. If he was trusting in his own things, if he was trusting in his own wealth, his own power, that stuff's all fleeting. Good morning. Welcome back to the Shasta Valley Christian Fellowship. We are in Psalms this morning. We got a couple quick ones, Psalm 28 and 29. And we're going to talk about faith. Mainly David's faith in this, but I think it'll help us too, if we could kind of see where David's coming from when he makes his choices and things. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump into Psalm 28. So the psalm is just simply titled the Psalm of David. There's a lot of them that are like this. I think the next one's going to be the same way. But Psalm 28, starting in verse 1. To you, Lord, I call. You are my rock. Do not turn a deaf ear to me. For if you remain silent, I will be like those who go down to the pit. Hear my cry for mercy as I call to you for help, as I lift up my hands toward your most holy place. Do not drag me away with the wicked, with those who do evil, who speak cordially with their neighbors, but harbor malice in their hearts. Repay them for their deeds and their evil work. Repay them for what their hands have done, and repay back on them what they deserve. Because they have no regard for the deeds of the Lord and what his hands have done, he will tear them down and never build them up again. Praise be to the Lord, for he has heard my cry for mercy. The Lord is my strength and my shield. My heart trusts in him, and he helps me. My heart leaps for joy, and with my song I praise him. The Lord is the strength of his people, a fortress of salvation for his anointed one. Save your people and bless your inheritance. Be their shepherd and carry them forever. It's a wonderful little song of kind of prayer and blessing. But I want to look at verse 1. It says, to you, Lord, I call. You're my rock. I think as Christians, we tend to take this for granted, that we can just call on God whenever. When you think about the privilege that we have here, if you look at any kind of monarchy, can you imagine one of the king's subjects just waking him up in the middle of the night? It's not going to happen. If it did, the guy would probably get his head cut off.
Right, yeah, do the end of it.
Unless it's the king's son or the king's daughter.
Right.
They have the privilege, and we are, adopted family of God.
Just experienced some pain in the last week. I was thinking about Jesus, what he did to open that door for us. Mm-hmm. His pain was more than we've experienced.
Yeah.
And just so that we could go to him at all hours for everything.
Yep. He opened up the door for us. So you are my rock. When during that culture, they would use visible things to describe people or situations. Where we would say, he is my strength or something like that, they would say, he is my rock. And you think of a rock as being unmovable, unbreakable. So that's where we're getting the image here. God is, he's always going to be there, a strong foundation. Nothing's going to tear him down. Do not turn a deaf ear to me, for if you remain silent, I will be like those who go down to the pit. The pit here is a euphemism for death, the grave. So what he's crying out now, he's saying, Lord, answer me or I'm going to get killed. He's in some serious, at least he sees himself as being in some serious trouble.
Was this when stuff was going on?
I'm sure something was going on.
Always.
David had a lot of enemies.
Yeah, but he's asking, and he's not being patient. He's asking and wanting God to.
It's an urgent situation, yeah.
I feel like even when my situation isn't that urgent, I know that feeling.
Yeah. So hear my cry for mercy as I call to you for help, as I lift up my hands towards your most holy place. We don't see this too much in our modern church, but it used to be very common that when people would pray, they would have this, their hands would be kind of out like this, looking up to heaven. And it's it's almost like a posture of receiving, like you're going to be receiving something from God when you're praying.
Because you're looking up, and when you're praying, you're looking down.
Yeah.
It just doesn't
The
seem
whole
right.
looking down thing, that's more modern, and what it does is it helps people to focus on their prayer, because a lot of people, like myself, we get distracted easy.
Yeah, there's a bug.
Yeah. I remember sitting in school, they had to give me a desk that didn't face the window because I'd be seeing the deer running across the hillside. Like, oh, wow. I had no clue what the teacher was saying.
I didn't even need the window. I was reading.
Yeah, yeah. So if you got your eyes closed, it helps you to stay focused is all. But I think in David's situation, he was I can put this, he was motivated to be focused. He had the urge there, the need there to connect with God. I don't know why my Bible keeps wanting me to go back a page.
You want to read it?
Plus, the more, it could have been after the Bathsheba thing, because, once you've done something that you consider is really wrong and God forgives you for it, you just draw closer to the Lord.
Yeah.
Because you have more to be thankful for.
Verse 3, do not drag me away with the wicked, with those who do evil, or speak cordially with their neighbors, but harbor malice in their hearts. Your version might say, speak peace with their neighbor, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Peace to the neighbor.
I think that's probably a better translation. Basically, they're being real friendly, but the whole time they're thinking about how they're going to stab them in the back.
Exactly, with mischief in their hearts.
When I read this, it made me think of our entry into World War II. Everybody knows about Japan bombing Pearl Harbor. Not very many people know that Japan was offering us medals of friendship like a week before that.
Oh.
So they were able to catch us totally off guard.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Not that I'm against the Japanese people. It was a long time ago. I'm pretty sure all those people that were involved are gone now.
Well, some of my neighbors, too, I don't get along with, but I'll still smile and wave at them when I drive by.
Yeah.
So it kind of reminds me of that, too.
Yeah, but you're not sitting there, planning out their
No, I'm
destruction
not
as you're smiling at them.
But I'm still not being totally honest,
Yeah.
I suppose.
I don't know, if you were totally honest with them, it might actually kind of heal something there. If they're like, oh, I didn't realize I was having that effect on you.
Right.
You always seem so happy. Verse 4, repay them for their deeds and for their evil work. So these are the people that are, doing the wicked things. This is not something that we Christians typically pray for ourselves. We want God to repay us with grace because we don't want to get payment for our deeds. We're looking for that grace and stuff. But the wicked, they don't really have a hope for that. It's if they've turned their back on God, all they have to face is punishment now. Verse 5, because they have no regard for the deeds of the Lord and what his hands have done, he will tear them down and never build them up again.
That's not right.
Never build them
We're
up.
supposed to pray for them to find him better. I mean,
I think it's for the,
It's-
they
this
said
is-
no, said no, said no.
But what he's saying here is they have no regard for God.
They don't want
So
anything to
God's
do
just
with
going to tear them down, not rebuild them.
They don't want anything to do with him, so they got
There's a point
Yeah.
where God will basically hand people over to their own, what's the word for it? He'll turn people over basically to their own sinfulness. Because he's talked, he's reached out to them, he sent people to talk to them, and they keep saying no and no and no, and finally he just says,
well, that's blasphemy, right? When they turn their back completely on him and say bad things about him.
yeah. That's a way of looking at it.
That's the way people are today.
Oh, yeah.
It's just miserable.
Your whole TV culture is about that. I can't remember which writer it was. I think it was, I don't want to say that because I don't want to get the wrong guy. But one of the writers for some very popular TV show, a comedy show, said that in order for the show to be popular, you basically had to give God the finger in his writing of it. That's how he got his writings, is because that's what the populace wants. They don't want to follow God.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see that with like The Simpsons or something.
Yeah. And
It may have been that guy. I can't remember which one it was, though.
broad is the way that leads to destruction, right?
Yep.
And narrow is the way that leads to God, but there's few that find it.
Mhm.
So that's like, another one said, by those songs, Highway to or what is it? Highway to Hell and Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah.
That's anticipated numbers.
Verse 6. He's changing his tone here. Praise the Lord, for he has heard my cry for mercy. So he knows that God's going to save him. It's interesting. It's all kind of in the, it's a song that he wrote, but it's all in the same breath almost. At one point, he's begging for God to save him. At the next thing, he's thanking God, which tells me he's probably thanking God before it's happened, which means that he had that faith and trust in God that God was going to take care of it.
That's hard to do, to just think of something that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
100% and
But we're
believe it.
supposed to.
Maybe as he was crying out, God poured peace on him and he goes, oh, wait a minute, I know you're.
That is very possible. I've had that happen before. Yeah. I had a thought and it's gone.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. Apparently it wasn't important. No, you.
Good wants me to be quiet, it'll never happen.
No. No, I actually enjoy the back and forth. I enjoy going back over the videos and watching it too. Some of the stuff I leave in, some of it I take out. It seems too personal.
I hope you do. Hope you do.
So he doesn't have to put a rating on it.
Right. Let's see. The Lord is my strength and my shield. My heart trusts in him and he helps me. He knows where his strength comes from. So what I really want you guys to see here is David's faith in all this. That's where David really drew on his strength, is because of his faith in God. If he was trusting in his own things, if he was trusting in his own wealth, his own power, that stuff's all fleeting. Even your really close friends, you can't trust on them 100% because something will happen eventually. It's going to hurt you. Yeah, because they're human. They're going to make mistakes too.
God is not human.
Nope.
He doesn't make mistakes.
And God is 100% good. The Bible tells us that everything will work out to our betterment because we love God. If you love God, things work out for you good. If you don't love God, no promises there.
You can't just love him sometimes, though.
No,
mean,
I
that really bothers me that people are just go to church on
little
Christmas time.
fickle about it. Oh yeah, Christmas, the C&Es, the Christmas and Easters. That's yeah, those people that only go to church on Christmas and Easter because they think it's as good Christian folk, they need to go to the church on those 2 days of the year, and they're missing a lot. Verse 8, the Lord is the strength of his people, a fortress of salvation for his anointed one. Again, if you're trusting in God, that's the best place to be. Don't trust in your own abilities, because even those could fail you at some point. Trust in God alone. And then lastly, verse 9, save your people and bless your inheritance. Be their shepherd and carry them forever. That last little part there, be their shepherd and carry them forever. A lot of times you see a picture or painting of Jesus. He's carrying a lamb.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of a symbolism here of God carrying us when we can't carry ourselves. Make sense? Okay.
Well, he's looking out for the one that got lost.
Well, that too.
Got lost. That's us.
He will go out and find us. Yeah, each one of us, we've gone off track. But there are times in life where you're going through something and you don't know how you're going to make it. And it's then that he's carrying you through it to get you through it.
I know I've been through like rough spots, and I felt like I've had people praying for me, and I felt like God's peace on me. But I really felt like it was because people were praying for me.
Yeah, that's true.
It really popped into my head that, oh, this is because somebody's praying for me right now. So it does. I think it does help to pray for others,
It does. And
for their strength.
even if they don't know or are aware of it, it does help. It's called intercessory prayers. Let's move on to Psalm 29. And for those of you that were counting, yes, there was 9 verses, not 6 on that last one. All right, Psalm 29, a Psalm of David again. Verse 1. Ascribe to the Lord, you heavenly beings. Ascribe to the Lord glory and strength. Ascribe to the Lord, due his name. Worship the Lord in the splendor of his holiness. The voice of the Lord is over the waters. The God of glory thunders. The Lord thunders over the mighty waters. The voice of the Lord is powerful. The voice of the Lord is majestic. The voice of the Lord breaks the cedars. The Lord breaks in pieces the cedars of Lebanon. He makes Lebanon leap like a calf, Sirion like a young wild ox. The voice of the Lord strikes with flashes of lightning. The voice of the Lord shakes the desert. The Lord shakes the desert of Kadesh. The voice of the Lord twists the oaks and strips the forest bare. And in his temple all cry glory. The Lord sits enthroned over the flood. The Lord is enthroned as king forever. The Lord gives strength to his people. The Lord blesses his people with peace. Any questions on that? Some of you guys may have had some little different readings in your
There are a lot of
translations.
different readings, yes.
On mine on 9, it mentioned a deer.
Well, mine on 6 mentioned unicorn.
Yeah, I seen that too.
What
Unicorn.
version are you in?
Probably the wild ox then.
Yeah.
The young unicorn.
Yeah. So there's,
King James Version.
I didn't check that before this, but there's a Hebrew word that means a horned creature. And when they were translating into the King James, they thought it meant like a single horned creature. So they called it a unicorn. When it doesn't mean single, it can mean multi-horned creature. And the NIV calls it a wild ox. You'll see the same thing happen in Job. You'll see it talk about a unicorn.
So
It's
are
the
we
same
saying
thing.
there was no unicorns? Is that what we're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
Oh.
Just one of those that
The people that do read it as a unicorn, they usually see it as more like an abstract thought, not a literal thing. So,
What does ascribe to be? Ascribe to the Lord.
so give credit where credit's due, basically.
Oh, okay.
Because a scribe, wasn't that somebody who like did the writing?
Well, a scribe, yeah, but to ascribe something is to
Give credit to
give credit to that person, yeah. There was another one in there, I'm trying to remember which version, where it was talking about the cedars shaking. Yours says something probably about giving birth.
It breaketh the cedars.
Okay, no, that's,
Oh, mine says giving birth. In 9, it says, the voice of the Lord makes the deer give birth.
yeah, okay, that's what I was talking about. So there's a word in there that can be translated either as an animal or as a tree. So then, if it's talking about the tree, it's not going to say giving birth, so that say it twists the tree. And if it's talking about the animal, it's not really going to twist the animal, so it's giving birth. It depends on which way you read that one
In
word.
9? Is that the one you guys read?
Yeah.
Oh.
Verse 9.
The voice of the Lord maketh the hinds to calve.
Yeah, the deer to give birth.
Yeah, the hind is a deer, or like a creature like a deer.
Hinds to calve and discover the forests. So I got calf and forests.
Yeah,
I don't understand.
I think
You
the
should go to King James so you're following the
I
same
am
one.
King James.
Oh, not King James, NIV.
Yeah.
That's one Scott has.
I'm using the NIV right now. I'm not going to say there's anything wrong with these other translations because again, it's how they translate that word. The NIV, I think, I didn't research this, but I'm thinking they went with oaks because the rest of the verse is talking about the forest, so it kind of fits together.
I just like to follow the same one because I can understand one version at
Yeah.
a time.
I do like reading multiple versions, but I preach from the NIV because it flows nicely, but it is not a word-for-word translation, and so you do lose a few things. Okay, so going back to verse 1, we already talked about ascribing, that's giving credit where credit is due. And David's putting this into a song, you heavenly beings. So like the angels and stuff, all you guys ascribe to the Lord his glory and strength.
Do you think that this, since it's 28, 29, this is directly after 28, or is it?
I don't think
separate?
so.
Okay.
I didn't see anything about them being together. Verse 2, ascribe to the Lord the glory due his name. Worship the Lord in the splendor of his holiness. We don't talk about that word worship too much. When we talk about worship, we usually think about singing songs here in church. But worship is it's also how you live your life. I think I talked about that before about your life song. Let your life be a song of worship to God. And David's saying here, let your worship the Lord in the splendor of His holiness. So if we're doing that, we're doing stuff that will that's pleasing to God, right? We're not necessarily what makes us happy, what makes God happy. Now, those two can run together. You can be making God happy and you happy at the same time. But there's some things that could be making you temporarily happy that will not make God happy. And you need to stay away from those, right? Okay. Trying to keep my stuff PG as I can here. Number 3, or verse 3. The voice of the Lord is over the waters. The God of glory thunders. The Lord thunders over the mighty waters. Have you guys ever experienced like a major storm?
Yes.
Like a major thunderstorm
Here in my
where it is like
Scariest thing in the
rattling
world.
your teeth as it's rolling through.
And it's like, feels like it's only 100 feet above your head.
Yeah.
And it shakes your whole car as you're going through it. Yeah.
And David's comparing God to that.
Or
When
saying
God
that-
speaks, everyone shakes, you know.
Yeah, or is he saying that the storm is from God?
It could be, but he's actually the way I read this, it's almost like when God speaks, it's like the storm.
Oh, okay.
Because later on, when God speaks, trees are split in two, and
Oh, wow.
That's beautiful.
And I feel
That-
like God does make His presence known
Mhm.
through His creation. I know I've been praying before and asking God for something, and I'll get a ray of sunlight, right out of the sky that's beaming on me, or some beautiful rainbow or a little puff of wind, and I'll feel like God is talking to me, through His creation. So I think that when those big storms come through, it definitely makes you feel like that's God and His power is behind those.
Yeah, I
big
feel like it's
storms.
so and you look at it that way with God being in charge of the storms. That was something that Jesus' disciples really found confusing when Jesus calmed the storm. The disciples said, "Who is this man that can even calm the storm?" Because that's something only God can do. Something else to remember too, if you look at Israel as kind of like the bride of God, like he refers to Israel as his bride. Israel had an affair with another god named, he was Dagon. And this god was supposedly in charge of the weather. So they would pray to him so they get rain for their crops and stuff. But David is reminding them that God's the one that is actually in charge, not this Dagon guy, but God. So the voice of the Lord is powerful. The voice of the Lord is majestic. Again, whenever we see God speaking in the Bible, a lot of times it's compared to a thunderstorm, a whirlwind, something like this. When people are hearing God speak from heaven, it's something that's just incredible. It's not a silent whisper to them.
But it sounds like it almost came from, was it the Ten Commandments? When
Yeah.
God spoke off of the
Mhm.
mountain?
That was another one.
Yeah,
Oh.
that's kind of where I got it from.
So the voice of the Lord breaks the cedars. The Lord breaks in pieces the cedars of Lebanon. Have you guys ever seen the aftermath of a tornado, like in person? It'll do that. It'll like twist trees.
Oh.
It'll uproot them. I was in Mississippi one time. They had a tornado go through a neighboring town. We went to check it out, and it cut this clean line right through the school. Luckily, there were no kids in the one building that it like went through. But the one thing that struck me is there was a school bus that it had picked up and put on the roof of their music building, still on its wheels. And it's like, that's impressive.
Wow.
A school bus? The other ones, there was a gravel parking lot, and the other school buses looked like they've been shot up with machine gun. There's holes all over the side of them where the gravel just like went right through the bus.
I remember I saw a picture in Time magazine where it was like it was just like a little piece of grass
Went
that
through a telephone
went through a
pole?
telephone pole.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember that too.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's the crazy the power that those have. So that's the picture I get anyway when he's talking about, the voice of the Lord breaking the cedars. Verse 6, he makes Lebanon leap like a calf, Sirion like a young wild ox. I'm not familiar with, okay, so it's Mount Hermon. Sirion is Mount Hermon. Basically, the earthquakes is what I'm getting at, is what I'm getting out of this.
So like skipping like a calf, wouldn't that be happiness?
It would be. But when he makes an entire location leap,
Yeah, maybe not.
it could be happy, but it could, if we're sticking with the whole storm theology or
Right. 'Cause he was
analogy,
just saying he was breaking the cedars of Lebanon.
yeah. The voice of the Lord strikes with flashes of lightning. Again, we're still chasing this whole storm idea.
Mine says flames of fire.
Yeah.
Flashes forth flames of fire.
Yeah, you have to wonder if he's talking about in the spirit or.
So I'm glad you brought that up because it seems to me like he is speaking literally here. But at the same time, the God that's in control of these physical storms that we can see outside of a window is also in charge of the storms that rage inside of us. And he can calm those storms if need be. Or he can let them rage on to teach us patience.
Oh yeah, there you go. And the storms inside of us last a lot longer than the regular storms.
They can.
Been gone for years.
They can.
Or if you're like me with no attention span, they don't last.
Oh, lightning. Oh, look, a goldfish. Squirrel.
Yeah, squirrel. I'm so upset. I'm happy.
Yeah, right. There's benefits to having ADHD. I think we're on verse 8. The voice of the Lord shakes the desert. The Lord shakes the desert of Kadesh.
Like an earthquake, huh?
Yeah, I'm thinking, yeah. I think what David's trying to do really is emphasize the power that's in God. Just him speaking does this stuff. A lot of us kind of glass over Genesis. When God created the heavens, he spoke all the stuff into existence. He these like stars and stuff that are out there that are, you can fit 1 million Earths inside of, and he just spoke that into existence.
I think it's somewhere in Revelation it says that he like got rid of Satan and all the evil just by exhaling or something.
Or he will do that.
Or he will
in
do that.
Revelation.
Yeah, Revelation, yeah, just exhaling and he's done to
That's absolutely will.
breath.
Verse 9. We had some discussion on this one. The voice of the Lord twists the oaks and strips the forest bare, and in his temple all cry glory. Now, again, if your version talks about an animal giving birth, it's not too far off of the same concept. The animals sometimes in an earthquake, and actually people will too, it's been discovered, when there's a major earthquake, they'll go into like a premature delivery. And so the animals do this as well. They'll give birth prematurely. Now, why it is, but it's something that happens.
Doesn't it say the earth goes through labor pains before waiting for the Lord to come back?
Yeah,
Like maybe the
all creation does. Yeah.
All creation, yeah.
Verse 10, the Lord sits enthroned over the flood. The Lord is enthroned as king forever. With these guys, you mentioned flood, their mind is going to go right to Noah and the ark. God was in charge of that flood. He rescued his faithful little group out of the earth that he was condemning at the time.
What little faithful group,
Eight,
right?
Yeah, right.
8 people, right? Or 8?
2, 4, 6, 8, yeah. 'Cause he had
Shem,
one
Ham,
wife.
Japheth. Yeah, because it was him, his 3 sons, and all their wives. Yeah.
How many people are here in church today? We got 8.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really. I was just thinking they're cute. Oh, yeah,
Isn't
those
that
were
funny?
right
Yeah.
Populated the whole earth like that.
Then the last verse 11, the Lord gives strength to his people. The Lord blesses his people with peace. It's good to draw on your strength from God. I think I talked about that in the last one. Paul was having an issue in his life. and he called it a thorn in his flesh, and he kept praying that, he prayed 3 times, he says, that God would take it away from him. And what God told him was, I think it's, my power is made perfect in your weakness.
Was it a sin?
I don't think so. There's different thoughts that it may have been his vision. It may have been just some annoying person that kept following him around. It could have been a few different things.
In the casino.
I don't think it was the casino. But the point of that is that whenever we're feeling super weak, that's when God can really come in and show his strength. Because when you see a person who you normally think of as weak doing something amazing, you know that's from God. As opposed to someone who's, super athletic, super intelligent, whatever, doing it, you're thinking, well, they're doing that of their own power. But when someone who's really weak is doing it, you know it's from God. So God shows his strength through that. Any questions on that?
I want to go back to that premature birth.
Okay.
I don't understand that.
Yeah, so it happens, and it happens with people and animals. When the earthquake hits,
Mhm.
women go into labor. The pregnant women will go into labor.
Whether they're ready or not,
Right.
is the baby safe?
Stress.
I mean, is it?
I think it is person with stress. You'd have to research it. I just know that it happens. I don't know how early they can go into labor from that happening.
With animals as well.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Earthquakes can do that.
Earthquakes, yeah. There's something about, it's just it probably is stress that releases some hormone or something that,
So if somebody's overdue, take them to the San Andreas.
yeah, right, let them shake a little bit.
Shake them up a little bit. Just get upset. Sorry.
But that should be an experiment now. I want to see do that.
I don't like turn my neck that well. Some things I just have to.
Like, what are you? Sorry.
No, I really want to see it as an experiment now. If they can make a person believe there's an earthquake happening, to see if they'll go into labor.
Shake the bed.
Yeah.
I know stress does make women go into labor early.
Yeah.
They have to be careful.
Well, I think I've heard about that, or maybe it's just on movie or something. Like a woman who was pregnant heard that her husband dying or something like that, and then she went into labor and she died. And maybe the baby lived. Or,
Yeah.
I thought I remember hearing a story about that somewhere.
Stress makes Debbie shake.
Oh,
So it's the opposite there. The stress causes the earthquake.
So Debbie would be a good midwife. Somebody named well.
Oh man. Okay, if there's no other questions on that, we'll end it there, and bye YouTube, whichever camera we're using.
Yeah.